Chicago, the Windy City, a metropolis celebrated for its towering skyscrapers and vibrant cultural tapestry. From the architectural marvels lining the Chicago River to the bustling energy of Millennium Park, tourists flock to experience its world-class museums and deep dish pizza. Chicago represents the American dream, a testament to ambition and innovation. However, beneath this gleaming facade, a different Chicago exists, a city grappling with the pervasive presence of gangs and the relentless cycle of violence. This darker side often remains hidden from casual observers. For many residents, particularly in marginalized communities, gang violence is an inescapable part of daily life.
The late 19th and early 20th centuries witnessed unprecedented growth for Chicago. The city's burgeoning industries attracted waves of immigrants from Europe. Arriving with hope and determination, these newcomers faced a daunting reality. Jobs were scarce, housing was cramped, and language barriers isolated them. In adversity, these immigrant communities sought solace within their own ethnic enclaves. Neighborhoods like Little Italy and Pilsen emerged as havens of familiarity. Churches, social clubs, and community organizations provided essential services. However, this rapid influx strained the city's resources and infrastructure. Existing power structures viewed these newcomers with suspicion and prejudice. Tensions created a volatile environment where minor disputes could escalate. As ethnic enclaves expanded, so did the competition for control. Localized skirmishes evolved into more organized forms of violence. Gangs sought to protect their turf and businesses from outsiders. The struggle for power was about economic survival and territorial control. Gangs offered protection and exploited local businesses through extortion. Their ranks swelled with young men seeking belonging and escape from poverty. Gangs attracted the attention of corrupt politicians and law enforcement. The lines between legitimate business and criminal enterprise blurred. Bribery, intimidation, and violence eroded public trust and the rule of law. The birth of organized crime. Organized crime in Chicago emerged from rapid growth, corruption, and ethnic gangs. Gangs recognized the potential for greater profits through cooperation. This marked a turning point in Chicago's criminal underworld. Ambitious leaders rose through the ranks, forging alliances and consolidating power. By pooling resources and coordinating activities, they expanded operations. Powerful criminal syndicates controlled entire industries and wielded political influence. The Prohibition windfall. The 1920s brought social and cultural upheaval in America. The 18th Amendment outlawed alcohol, creating a lucrative black market. Organized crime in Chicago expanded operations and amassed fortunes. Existing networks of corrupt officials and transportation routes facilitated bootlegging. Illegal liquor flowed into the city, enriching criminal empires. Speakeasies sprang up serving illicit alcohol and other vices. The money generated by bootlegging fueled corruption and violence. Gangs bribed or intimidated officials to turn a blind eye. Rival gangs and honest citizens faced swift retribution. The city's streets became battlegrounds. Innocent bystanders were often caught in the crossfire. The social fabric of Chicago began to unravel under organized crime's stranglehold. The rise of Alphonse Capone. Amidst Prohibition-era chaos, Al Capone rose to prominence. Born in Brooklyn to Italian immigrants, Capone's rise was marked by cunning and opportunity. Arriving in Chicago in 1920, Capone quickly ascended the ranks of the Chicago Outfit. Capone controlled bootlegging operations and understood public relations. He cultivated an image as a benevolent gangster, providing jobs and services. He donated to charities and opened soup kitchens during the Great Depression. However, beneath this facade lay a ruthless killer. Capone's reign was marked by violence and brutality. Rival gangs were eliminated in brazen displays of power. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre of 1929 remains a chilling reminder. Capone's public persona earned admiration, but his reign left a stain on Chicago. The city became synonymous with lawlessness and corruption. The American dream seemed to be slipping away, replaced by fear and uncertainty. Organized crime's influence extended beyond the liquor trade. Capone's Chicago outfit infiltrated businesses and institutions. From labor unions to the mayor's office, Capone's reach was limitless. The Chicago Police Department was riddled with corruption. Many officers accepted bribes or participated in criminal activities. Honest officers faced threats and violence. The justice system allowed criminals to escape justice. Citizens were caught in the crossfire of gangland wars. Neighborhoods controlled by Capone's organization lived in fear. Businesses faced pressure to pay protection money. The city's streets became battlegrounds. Innocent bystanders were often caught in the crossfire. The social fabric of Chicago began to unravel. The city's reputation was tarnished by violence and corruption. The Roaring Twenties left an indelible mark on American society. For Chicago, this era was defined by organized crime and Al Capone. Prohibition's repeal in 1933 did not end organized crime. Federal agent Eliot Ness and the Untouchables brought Capone down. Unable to convict him on violence charges, they pursued tax evasion. In 1931, Capone was convicted and sentenced to 11 years in prison. Capone's downfall did not end organized crime in Chicago. New gangsters emerged to fill the void. The legacy of the Roaring Twenties is complex. It is a story of ambition, greed, and rapid change. It is a reminder of the fight for justice and a better tomorrow. Chicago's rise embodied the American dream, but its underworld left a lasting impact. Organized crime in Chicago underwent a dramatic transformation. The repeal of Prohibition fragmented criminal empires. Gangs diversified operations and sought new revenue sources. The Great Migration transformed the city's racial and social landscape. New tensions and rivalries emerged. The rise of the drug trade provided a lucrative new source of revenue. Chicago became a major center for drug trafficking. Gangs were more fluid and less hierarchical. Membership was often determined by neighborhood affiliation. The allure of quick money and status fueled gang recruitment. These gangs were more difficult for law enforcement to infiltrate. The city's landscape continued to evolve. The fight against organized crime persisted. Chicago's gangs are linked to broader socioeconomic forces. Deep-seated social and economic disparities fuel gang violence. Systemic racism and discriminatory policies create fertile ground for gangs. Deindustrialization decimated the city's manufacturing sector. Poverty, crime, and social instability increased. Many young people turned to gangs for survival and belonging. Concentrated poverty created a sense of hopelessness. Underfunded schools limited opportunities for upward mobility. The cycle of poverty and desperation continued.
Poverty, lack of opportunity, and exposure to violence create a vicious cycle. Young people in gang-ridden neighborhoods often see violence as normal. Gangs offer a sense of belonging and protection. The violence stems from deeper societal issues like poverty and systemic racism. Systemic racism perpetuates gang violence in Chicago. Decades of redlining segregated black and brown communities, starving them of resources. This segregation impacted education, employment, healthcare, and exposure to hazards. The war on drugs led to mass incarceration, disproportionately affecting black and brown men. The cumulative impact of these socio-economic factors, coupled with the historical legacy of racism and discrimination, created a fertile breeding ground for gang violence in Chicago. Young people, facing limited opportunities and exposed to violence from a young age, often saw gangs as their only viable option. The allure of quick money, status, and a sense of belonging proved too strong to resist, perpetuating the cycle of violence that had plagued their communities for generations. The persistence of gang violence in Chicago is a stark reminder that the city's challenges cannot be addressed solely through law enforcement or punitive measures. It requires a multifaceted approach that addresses the root causes of crime, poverty, lack of opportunity, systemic racism, and the erosion of social institutions. It demands a commitment to investing in communities, providing young people with viable pathways to success, and creating a more just and equitable society for all.
To truly grasp Chicago's gang violence, one must move beyond statistics and headlines, delving into the lived experiences of those directly affected.
Community leaders offer invaluable insights into the root causes and consequences of this crisis. Their voices paint a picture of resilience, desperation, and a desire for change.
We're not talking about faceless figures, emphasizes Father Michael Flager. These are our children, our neighbors, caught in a web of poverty and violence.
Father Flager's words resonate deeply with those living in communities ravaged by gang violence. The human cost is immeasurable: shattered families, stolen dreams, and pervasive fear.
It's like living in a war zone, laments Miss Jackson, a grandmother in Englewood. You're constantly looking over your shoulder, worried about stray bullets.
Miss Jackson's story is not unique. For many, the threat of violence is a constant companion.
The system has failed these communities, asserts Dr. Jones. Decades of disinvestment and discriminatory policies have created frustration and despair.
Dr. Jones's assessment underscores the systemic nature of Chicago's gang problem. It is the consequence of deeply entrenched social and economic inequalities.
The roots of Chicago's gang violence run deep, entwined with a long and troubled history of racial segregation, economic inequality, and systemic neglect. The city's south and west sides, predominantly populated by black and brown residents, have borne the brunt of these historical injustices.
These communities have been starved of resources for generations, observes Dr. Johnson. Redlining and the flight of industry have left these neighborhoods economically isolated.
The consequences are evident in the crumbling infrastructure and limited opportunities.
The lack of investment is a self-fulfilling prophecy, argues Miss Williams. Denying young people access to education and safe spaces pushes them into gangs.
It's not just about money, adds Mr. Davis, it's about hope. Growing up surrounded by violence and poverty makes it hard to believe in a different future.
Mr. Davis's insight underscores the psychological toll of living in a community ravaged by violence and deprivation. The absence of hope can be as debilitating as any material deprivation.
Addressing gang violence in Chicago demands a multifaceted approach beyond traditional law enforcement.
Police presence is essential, but it can't address underlying social, economic, and historical factors.
We need to work with the community, build trust, and address root causes like poverty and trauma.
Invest in our children and communities, providing alternatives to gangs.
Break the cycle of violence by addressing trauma and teaching conflict resolution.
The fight against gang violence in Chicago demands a multifaceted approach, one that transcends traditional law enforcement boundaries. We need to address the root causes of gang violence and invest in communities to create pathways out of poverty, providing young people with viable alternatives to gang life. Central to this multifaceted approach is the concept of community policing, a philosophy that emphasizes collaboration, trust building, and problem solving through partnerships between law enforcement and the communities they serve. Community policing is about building relationships, not just making arrests. It's about getting to know the residents, understanding their concerns, and working together to find solutions. When the community trusts the police, they're more likely to share information that can help us prevent crime and keep everyone safe. It's a two-way street. We rely on the community's cooperation, and they need to know that we're here to protect and serve them.
We need to reach these kids early, before the gangs do, emphasizes Ms. Thompson, a dedicated social worker who runs a youth outreach program in Englewood. We need to show them that there's more to life than the streets, that they have the potential to achieve their dreams.
It's about breaking the cycle of poverty and violence, explains Mr. Hernandez, a former gang member who now works as a youth counselor. We need to show these kids that there's a way out, that they can overcome their circumstances and achieve their full potential.
We need to create communities of opportunity, where everyone has a chance to thrive, argues Dr. Jackson, an urban planner advocating for equitable development. That means investing in affordable housing, quality education, job training programs, and access to healthcare.
Education is the key to breaking the cycle, asserts Miss Davis, a dedicated teacher at a public school in Chicago's Austin neighborhood. When we empower our students with knowledge, critical thinking skills, and a belief in their own potential, we empower them to create a better future for themselves and their communities. We can't give up on these kids, emphasizes Miss Johnson, the center's tireless director, her voice filled with a mix of determination and compassion. They are our future, and they deserve every opportunity to succeed.
His story, a testament to the redemptive power of second chances and the unwavering belief in the human capacity for change, offers a beacon of hope for those seeking to escape the grip of gang life.
Chicago's journey to overcome gang violence is challenging, requiring collective effort and belief in change. It's a shared responsibility, not just for law enforcement but for everyone. Addressing systemic inequalities and investing in communities is crucial. Ensuring access to education, healthcare, and economic opportunities is key. Dismantling racism and discrimination is essential for a just society. Amidst challenges, hope persists for a different future. Chicago can become a beacon of resilience and opportunity. The fight continues, but change is on the horizon.